Imagine gliding down the highway in a 1950s Cadillac, its tail fin slicing through the breeze, sunlight dancing on the chrome hood ornament, and an 8-track player filling the cabin with the soundtrack of your youth. Back then, cars weren't just machines, they were dreams on wheels, crafted with bold ideas that promised to change the way we traveled. From turbocharged rotary engines to quirky curb fillers, these innovations once carried the spark of the future. Yet today, so many of them sit buried in the scrapyard of history, remembered only by those who love them. What transforms a groundbreaking idea into nothing more than a relic? Let's find out. Bench seats. Close your eyes and picture a 1965 Chevrolet Impala, its front bench seat stretching like a welcoming sofa, wide enough for 3 people to pile in before hitting the open road. From the 1920s through the 1980s, bench seats were the beating heart of American cars. They weren't just about comfort, they were about togetherness. Families squeezed in with kids and coolers for cross-country road trips, friends slid across from either door without clumsy consoles blocking the way, and couples shared quiet moments shoulder to shoulder under the glow of dashboard lights. In the 1950s, when road trips were practically a national pastime, bench seats made every car feel like a living room on wheels. But as the years rolled on, romance gave way to reality. The 1970s brought stricter safety standards, and suddenly, those wide, cozy benches looked less like freedom and more like a liability. Unlike bucket seats that cradled passengers securely, benches left people sliding around in sharp turns or worse, during collisions. Early designs often had nothing more than a single lap belt stretched across 3 people, a thin thread of safety in the event of a crash. A 1978 NHTSA study revealed that bucket seats reduced injuries in frontal crashes by nearly 30%. Headrests, rarely found on benches, proved critical in preventing whiplash. Drivers themselves began speaking up, with a 1975 Motor Trend survey showing 60% preferred the sportier, safer feel of buckets. By the 1980s, even giants like General Motors and Chrysler phased them out. Airbags, adjustable belts, and changing tastes sealed the fate of the bench seat, leaving behind memories of a simpler, more intimate era. Ashtrays step inside a 1957 Chrysler 300C, and there it was, an ashtray glinting from the dashboard, paired with a cigarette lighter, almost as important as the ignition itself. For decades, from the early 1900s through the 1980s, ashtrays were more than car accessories. They were cultural artifacts. In 1965, when 42% of US adults smoked, cars like the 1959 Buick LeSabre catered to that habit with ashtrays and dashboards, armrests, and even the rear seats. They weren't just functional, they were stylish. Sometimes chrome, sometimes elegantly molded plastic. They kept ashes neat, kept cars clean, and gave drivers a way to light up without missing a beat. Luxury models like the Lincoln Continental of the 1960s even boasted electric lighters, tiny symbols of modernity and sophistication. But then the smoke began to clear. In 1964, the Surgeon General's report shattered the illusion of glamour, revealing smoking's deadly costs. Slowly, habits shifted. By 1990, smoking rates had plummeted to 25%. Suddenly, the once prized ashtray became a nuisance, hard to clean, a source of lingering odors, and in too many cases, the cause of small fires. General Motors even reported over 100 ashtray-related fires in the 1970s, a hidden danger tucked into dashboards. As smoking declined, drivers' needs changed too. Instead of a lighter, they wanted cup holders for sodas and coffee, symbols of a fast-paced, on-the-go lifestyle. By the 1990s, automakers like Honda and Chevrolet quietly retired the ashtray, replacing it with storage bins and cup holders that fit the new American way of driving. A 1992 survey confirmed it. 80% of buyers preferred storage over a built-in ashtray. What was once a symbol of style and status slowly became a relic of a culture left in the rearview mirror. Vent windows now roll the clock back to the 1930s, when air conditioning was a luxury reserved for the wealthy. For everyone else, vent windows, those small triangular glass panels perched at the front of car doors, were salvation. Known as wing windows, they funneled a refreshing breeze directly into the cabin, a blessing on hot summer days. Picture a 1964 Ford Mustang cruising down the highway, its vent windows tilted just enough to let in cool air without the deafening roar of a fully open window. In classics like the 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air or the 1967 Pontiac GTO, vent windows weren't just practical, they were stylish, their angular design giving cars an extra edge. Drivers loved the control. Open them a crack for a gentle breeze or swing them wide for maximum cooling power. They made long drives bearable, especially in humid summers long before climate control was an option. But beauty had its flaws. Vent windows were notorious for leaking, with rain seeping through worn seals and soaking upholstery. A 1968 Consumer Reports review found 40% of Dodge Dart owners complained of leaks. Worse, they became a thief's shortcut, easy to pry open in city streets. By the 1970s, as air conditioning grew more affordable, vent windows lost their purpose. Cars like the 1973 Cadillac Eldorado came with climate systems that made breezes obsolete. Then the oil crisis hit and fuel efficiency became king. Engineers found that eliminating vent windows made cars sleeker, reducing drag and boosting mileage by up to 12%, according to a 1979 SAE study. Automakers like Toyota and Ford phased them out by the mid-1980s, sealing cars tight against the CU elements. Today, vent windows are a nostalgic memory for collectors, a quirky reminder of a time when comfort was as simple as tilting a little pane of glass into the wind. Record players. In 1956, Chrysler unveiled the Highway Hi-Fi, a gadget so bold it transformed your DeSoto into a rolling jukebox. For the first time, drivers could take their favorite vinyl records, Sinatra crooning, Elvis shaking the airwaves, on the open road. Phillips joined the experiment in cars like the 1957 Dodge Custom Royal, offering special 7-inch discs designed to play through the car's speakers. It felt revolutionary in a world where AM radio ruled. The mechanism was spring-loaded to fight bumps, but railroads weren't kind. Every pothole sent needles skipping, scratching cherished records and jolting the music mid-song. Owners loved the novelty, but frustration soon followed. Motor Trend reviews complained of endless skips, while the bulky unit swallowed up precious trunk space. Worst of all, changing records while driving turned joy into danger. A 1960 NHTSA report even linked record players to distracted driving accidents, proving fun could sometimes be fatal. By 1965, a new hero emerged, the 8-track tape, famously debuting in the Ford Mustang. Compact, skip-free, and far safer, it buried in-car record players almost overnight. What started as an audacious dream ended as a short-lived experiment, remembered fondly but left behind in the static. Column shifters. Introduced in the 1930s, column shifters moved the gear lever to the steering column, freeing up space in the front seat. In roomy sedans like the 1941 Buick Roadmaster or the 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air, this meant 3 people could sit up front, shoulder to shoulder, without awkward obstacles in the way. Families adored the design, simple and practical, a feature that symbolized closeness. Yet with time, its flaws became impossible to ignore. The linkage wore down, leaving gears vague and sloppy. Road and Track noted in 1965 that nearly 1 in 3 drivers complained of missed shifts after just 50,000 miles. Meanwhile, the sports car scene was changing everything. Cars like the 1963 Pontiac GTO introduced floor shifters that gave drivers precision and a sense of control that column shifters could never match. And when automatic transmissions swept across America, by 1970 they were in 70% of cars. The old column design became redundant. By the 1980s, floor-mounted shifters dominated, their sporty aesthetic and reliability sealing the column shifter's fate. What once symbolized practicality became a relic of an era when simplicity was king. Landau bars. Once upon a time, Landau bars whispered luxury. Popular in the 1920s and 30s, these decorative metal bars adorned the rear of high-end cars like the 1935 Packard 12, calling back to the days of horse-drawn carriages. They had no real function, but in the 1970s, models like the Lincoln Continental Mark IV flaunted them as badges of prestige. They said, "This car is for someone important," but beneath the shine, Landau bars were dead weight. According to SAE data, they added up to 50 pounds, cutting fuel efficiency by 3.5%, a serious flaw during the oil crisis of the 1970s. Rust also ate away at them, especially in snowy regions, driving up costly repairs. Owners grew frustrated, questioning why. They were paying for extra maintenance on a feature that did nothing. Consumer surveys in 1978 revealed 65% of buyers preferred real upgrades, like sunroofs or panoramic glass, that added both style and function. By the 1980s, Cadillac, Chrysler, and others quietly abandoned Landau bars. Today, you'll only see them on restored classics or stretched limousines, a relic of an era where appearances mattered more than practicality. Floor dimmer switch. Step back into the 1920s, when night driving was a challenge and fumbling with headlights was the norm. Then came the floor dimmer switch, a small foot-operated pedal that changed everything. Found in models like the 1948 Chevrolet Fleetmaster or the 1953 Ford Crestline, it allowed drivers to tap their foot and shift from high beams to low without lifting a hand from the wheel. Imagine a quiet night in a 1950 Plymouth Deluxe, the road stretching endlessly ahead. With a simple click of the foot, your beams dipped respectfully for oncoming traffic. A small innovation that made the highway safer and life easier. By the 1940s and 50s, it became standard, praised in reviews for its intuitive ease and ability to cut distraction. But over time, its weaknesses began to show. Mud, dirt, and rainwater seeped into the switch, corroding it until lights failed altogether. A 1962 repair survey found that a quarter of electrical issues in cars like the Chevrolet Bel Air were tied to faulty dimmer switches. Repairs were costly, and drivers in rainy regions cursed the failures that left them stranded in the dark. By the late 1970s, automakers turned to steering column-mounted controls, sealed from debris and integrated with other functions like turn signals and wipers. Models such as the 1978 Ford Mustang marked the shift to this modern setup. The floor dimmer switch, once a symbol of simplicity, faded quietly, remembered by older drivers as one more tactile connection between man, machine, and the open road. 8-track tapes. Let's crank it back to 1965, when the 8-track tape turned cars like the 1966 Ford Mustang into rolling concert halls. Developed by Bill Lear of Learjet fame, alongside Ford and RCA, these magnetic cartridges were magic. No flipping, just non-stop music. Imagine sliding into a Dodge Charger, popping in the Beatles, and cruising with a personal soundtrack that didn't fade with static. By 1968, 1 in 4 American cars had 8 tracks, offering up to 80 minutes of music across 4 channels. Compact, affordable, and stylish, they redefined in-car entertainment with artists from Motown to the Rolling Stones releasing albums in 8-track format. Dealerships sold them as premium upgrades for $100 to $200, a luxury many eagerly paid for, but glamour came with glitches. Tapes jammed constantly, with a 1972 Consumer Report study revealing nearly 30% failed within 2 years. Mid-song clicks interrupted the vibe as the tape switched tracks, while repeated use wore the magnetic tape thin, leaving songs muffled and distorted. A 1970 Car and Driver review called them a clunky compromise, with 60% of owners admitting frustration. By the mid-1970s, compact cassettes stole the spotlight. Cars like the 1978 Toyota Corolla offered better sound, smaller tapes, and the luxury of rewinding. Then in 1983, the Mercedes-Benz 380 cell brought in CDs crystal clear and futuristic. By then, the 8-track had become yesterday's news, a short-lived icon now kept alive only by collectors and nostalgia buffs. Vinyl roofs. Few features scream class like a gleaming vinyl roof. Made from PVC, they gave cars like the 1970 Chrysler Imperial or the 1975 Cadillac Eldorado the illusion of a convertible, dripping with luxury at a fraction of the cost. Picture pulling up to a diner in a Pontiac Grand Prix, its black vinyl roof reflecting neon lights, the look alone turning heads. By 1970, nearly a third of US cars sported vinyl tops, available in everything from classic black to textured alligator prints. A 1973 Car and Driver survey showed 65% of buyers chose them for their elegance. With simple adhesive and chrome trim, automakers made ordinary steel roofs look premium, but beauty was fleeting. Under the sun, vinyl cracked and faded within years, especially in scorching states like Arizona. In cold climates, rain and snow seeped under peeling adhesive, causing rust to spread across the steel beneath. A 1978 Consumer Report study found 40% of vinyl roof owners dealt with bubbling or peeling, often costing up to $500 to repair. Nearly $2,000 in today's money. Advances in paint technology finished the job. By the mid-1980s, clear coat finishes, like those on the BMW 3 Series, delivered a glossy, durable shine without cracking or peeling. Vinyl roofs faded into history, remembered as stylish but high-maintenance icons of their time. Tail fins. By 1959, the Cadillac Eldorado's towering fins stretched over a foot high, capturing the spirit of the space age. Inspired by rockets and jet planes, fins symbolized America's obsession with the future. Cars like the 1957 Chrysler 300C and the 1960 Plymouth Fury flaunted them, their bold designs doubling as status symbols. A 1960 Car and Driver poll revealed over half of buyers chose fin cars for their striking looks. Fins made cars look fast, futuristic, and fearless, even when parked at the curb. But the fantasy soon hit a wall. Production costs soared, adding nearly $1,000 per car, and safety reports flagged the fins' sharp edges as hazards for pedestrians. Rear visibility suffered too, leading to higher accident rates in tight parking lots. By the mid-1960s, tastes shifted. Sleeker models like the 1964 Chevrolet Nova favored clean lines over flamboyant wings. By the 1970s, fins were gone, relics of a time when cars weren't just vehicles. They were rolling sculptures of imagination. White wall tires. Few details defined elegance like white wall tires. With their crisp bands of white rubber, they turned cars like the 1955 Cadillac Fleetwood and the 1957 Chevy Bel Air into rolling works of art. First developed in the early 1900s with zinc oxide for strength, they became a luxury status symbol by the 1950s, adorning nearly 40% of American cars. Consumer surveys from 1956 revealed 60% of buyers chose them simply for their elegance. Nothing else on the road gleamed quite like a fresh set of white walls, but that beauty demanded constant work. Dust and grime stained them instantly, and owners scrubbed weekly to keep the white bright. Manufacturing costs were higher too, and by the 1980s, tastes shifted. Sleek all-black tires on cars like the 1983 BMW 3 Series offered durability, a cleaner look, and far less maintenance. Surveys in 1985 confirmed the change. 80% of buyers preferred the modern, understated style of black tires. White walls, once symbols of wealth and refinement, became niche, surviving only on restored classics and vintage showpieces. Automatic seatbelts. In the mid to 1980s, America faced a problem. Only half of drivers used seatbelts. Automakers turned to a futuristic fix, the automatic belt. These motorized shoulder straps slid into place as the door closed, often paired with manual lap belts. Models like the Honda Accord marketed them as high-tech safety systems. And a 1988 survey showed 70% of owners liked the hands-free design. For many, it felt like stepping into the future, but the future was flawed. Without lap belts, protection was incomplete, leading to higher injury rates and crashes. A 1990 NHTSA study revealed 40% of drivers skipped the lap belt entirely, undermining the system. The shoulder strap alone could cause neck injuries, as crash tests proved. Mechanical issues were common too: jammed tracks, burnt out motors, and expensive $200 repairs. By the early 1990s, driver frustration grew. A 1991 Motor Trend review bluntly called the system annoying. Airbags becoming standard by the mid-90s, and cars like the Honda Civic offered effortless, comprehensive protection. Automatic belts, once hailed as progress, quickly faded as airbags became the gold standard. Woody wagon. The Woody was born out of necessity. In the Depression era, wood was cheaper than steel, and cars like the 1941 Ford Super Deluxe used timber panels to keep costs down. But out of necessity came charm. By the 1940s, models like the Chrysler Town and Country turned the Woody into an icon of Americana. With varnished panels glowing in the sun, they embodied rustic charm and beach town vibes. But the charm came at a price. Wood demanded endless upkeep, sanding, staining, and sealing to ward off rot. Owners often spent $500 annually just to maintain the panels, a huge cost at the time. Worse, steel-bodied wagons like the 1955 Chevy Nomad proved safer, stronger, and easier to maintain. By the mid-1950s, Woodies became impractical relics. Today, they live on as beloved collectors' pieces, symbols of a simpler, more romantic age when cars blended craftsmanship with character. Gina. Curb feelers. In the 1950s, protecting your shiny white walls was serious business, and curb feelers were the answer. These wiry springs mounted near the wheels scraped the curb before your tires did, warning you with an unmistakable hiss of metal against concrete. Affordable at just $5 a set, they quickly appeared on classics like the Chevy Bel Air, saving countless hubcaps and tires. But for all their usefulness, they came with quirks. The scraping sound embarrassed drivers, drawing unwanted attention in crowded streets. They also broke easily, with half requiring replacement within a year, according to 1960 repair data. By the 2000s, technology left them in the dust. Parking sensors and backup cameras, like those in the 2002 Toyota Prius, offered quiet precision without the squeal. Today, curb feelers survive mostly as nostalgic novelties, reminders of a time when parking was as much about sound as sight. Push-button transmissions. In 1956, Chrysler introduced something straight out of science fiction: push-button shifting. Cars like the Plymouth Fury and Dodge Coronet featured sleek dashboard buttons that replaced bulky gear levers. With a simple press, you could glide from drive to reverse. For a moment, it felt like the future had arrived, and Motor Trend praised the innovation as effortless. By 1957, 10% of Chrysler's lineup featured the system, impressing buyers with its modern design. But beneath the style lurked trouble. Electrical glitches plagued the solenoids, causing breakdowns that often cost $300 to repair, a serious hit for drivers at the time. A 1959 survey found 30% of owners accidentally hit the wrong button, creating confusion and risk. By the mid-1960s, simpler, more reliable levers returned in cars like the Dodge Dart, and push buttons quickly disappeared. Today, they're admired only in vintage Mopars, charming curiosities from an era when designers dared to dream boldly, even if reality didn't cooperate. And that's a wrap, car fans. From bench seats to Woodies, from ashtrays to 8-tracks. These 15 innovations once defined the road, but time and progress left them behind. Each one tells a story of ambition, creativity, and the relentless push toward the future. They remind us that every feature in today's cars, from touchscreens to driver assist systems, stands on the shoulders of past experiments. But here's the question: which of today's must-have features will tomorrow's drivers laugh at? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more automotive adventures. The road ahead is full of surprises, so keep your eyes open, your hands on the wheel, and your engine revving. See you on the next ride.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into Hollywood's hidden history.